The Deathbed Curse, a story of blood, revenge, and the six who walk in darkness. What would you do if you knew, absolutely knew, that seeing something would mean your death? Not maybe, not possibly, but absolute inescapable death. Would you close your eyes? Would you run? Or would you be like the people of this Indonesian village who learned to survive by never looking, never questioning, and never ever stepping outside after dark? This is a story about what happens when that unspoken rule is broken, about what crawls through the darkness carrying a bed meant for the dead, and about one young woman who had no idea that returning home for her mother's funeral would unleash something that should have stayed buried forever. If you're already feeling that uneasy tightness in your chest, good. That means you're paying attention. And trust me, you don't want to face this story alone. Stay with me until the end, because what you'll learn about the six who walk in darkness, it might just save your life. Before we descend into the full depth of this nightmare, you need to understand what we're dealing with. Picture this: a young woman, her body broken, her heart shattered, kneeling in the dirt beside the corpses of the only family she ever truly knew. Her grandfather dead from a bullet meant for someone else. Her father a monster she barely recognized, dying by her own hand. And surrounding her, scattered like broken toys, the bodies of an entire village that fell because she came home. Because she dared to ask questions. Because she wanted to know where she came from. That's where the story ends. But to understand how we got there, we have to go back to the beginning, to a night when the first shovel broke ground in a forest that had seen too many graves already. The story opens in the suffocating darkness of an Indonesian jungle. The kind of darkness that doesn't just hide things, it swallows them whole. We see men working frantically, their shovels tearing into the earth under the watchful gaze of a man named Rukman. But this isn't just any grave they're digging. They're not burying one body. They're burying many. And some of those bodies, they're not even dead yet. Nearby, a car sits with its headlights cutting through the trees. Inside, two men watch the grim operation unfold. Trapped, an older man with eyes that have seen too much, and another figure whose face remains shadowed in the dim light. Rukman barks orders at the workers, and we quickly understand that this isn't about honoring the dead. It's about hiding evidence. Bodies are being dumped into a mass grave, casualties of something terrible, something that needed to be erased from history. But fear is a contagious thing, and when the grave grows deep enough, some of these men start to crack. One of them, a young worker whose nerves finally betray him, drops his shovel and runs. He doesn't make it 10 steps before Rukman's gun barks once in the darkness. The young man crumbles. His body is dragged to the edge of the pit and thrown in with the others. Anyone else want to run? Rukman asks, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. No one moves. No one speaks. They understand now. The only way out of this forest is through the grave they're digging themselves. But there's one more delivery that night. A wooden bed frame, Katies, carried through the trees, and strapped to it is a living man. His name is Jarut, and even bound and helpless, there's something dangerous in his eyes, something that refuses to break. Prapt steps out of the car to face this prisoner, and the history between them crackles like static before a storm. You can kill me, Jarut says, his voice steady despite everything. But as long as my blood flows through this world, I will survive. I will return. Prapt holds up a yellowed book, ancient pages filled with secrets that shouldn't be known. I found how to kill you, he says, permanently. No resurrection, no return, just death. For the first time, Jarut's composure cracks. Whatever is in that book, it terrifies him. A third man emerges from the shadows, Jamal, who once worked alongside Jarut, who once helped him kill, who once watched him drink the blood of his victims. But everyone has a breaking point. Jamal reached his when he realized that Jarut wasn't human anymore, if he ever was. He has no right to live, Jamal tells Prapt. He's not a man. He's something else wearing a man's shape. Prapt produces a blade, a special blade, prepared according to rituals written in that yellow book. He signals to Rukman, and the mercenaries who brought Jarut here are cut down in a hail of bullets. Witnesses, complications, gone. Only the essential players remain. Facing death, Jarut's voice changes. It deepens, resonates with something not quite human. He begins to chant a curse, spoken in a language that predates memory. I will return, he promises, his words carrying the weight of prophecy. I will have vengeance on everyone who betrayed me, and I will walk this earth as long as my blood survives in another. He might have been talking about future generations, children, grandchildren, a lineage he didn't even know existed, but Prap doesn't wait to find out. With a single, decisive stroke, he separates Jarut's head from his body. The curse hangs in the air like smoke, but the body is still, for now. And the story was just beginning. Years pass. The village of Majanang returns to a fragile normalcy, though normal is a relative term in a place where darkness carries its own weight. The people learn to fear the night. They learn to lock their doors at sunset. They learn that sometimes, between the hours of twilight and dawn, a procession moves through the streets, 6 shadowy figures carrying a funeral bed, and anyone who sees it, anyone who looks, anyone who catches even a glimpse of their burning eyes, dies before morning. No exceptions, no mercy, no escape. The villagers call them Kromolea, the cursed servants of Jarut's vengeance, and they become the reason children don't play outside after dark, the reason windows are shuttered tight, the reason an entire village learned to live in fear. Into this atmosphere of barely contained terror comes Zia, a young woman from Jakarta, returning to the village she barely remembers for a funeral she never wanted to attend. Her mother is dead, a woman she was separated from as a child, kept away for reasons no one ever explained. Beside her in the car is Diane, her closest friend, the one person who's been with her through everything in the city. But nothing could have prepared either of them for what waits in Majanang. As their car crosses the village boundary marker, the sky seems to darken, not just with clouds, but with something heavier. Birds scatter in frightened waves. The air grows thick and cold. It's as if the village itself is trying to warn them to turn back. They arrive at the cemetery to find a small gathering around a freshly dug grave. Zia's grandmother, her mother's mother, is being buried, but there's another figure present that catches our attention. Perhaps older now, his face weathered by decades of secrets. We realize that Zia is his granddaughter, though the warmth we might expect from a family reunion is entirely absent. Prap looks at Zia with something between fear and resentment, as if her presence is a danger he spent years trying to prevent. He doesn't embrace her, he barely acknowledges her. Instead, he immediately demands to know when she's leaving. The funeral is over, he says. Go back to Jakarta, there's nothing for you here. But Zia didn't come all this way just to be sent away like an unruly child. She has questions that have haunted her since childhood. Why was she kept away from her mother? Why does no one ever talk about her father? Why does her grandfather look at her with such fear and hostility? You set me away because of some debt, she accuses. Some curse the village believes in. My father has been dead for 10 years. How long are you going to let superstition control this family? Prap's response is cold and final. This isn't like other villages. You shouldn't have come back. For your own safety and everyone else's, leave. Inside the village, we begin to understand the depth of the terror that holds Majanang in its grip. Jamal is, the same Jamal from that terrible night years ago, is now the village headman, and he addresses a gathering of worried residents with news that chills them to their bones. The daughter of Jarut has returned, he announces. Tonight, everyone must stay inside. Lock your doors. Cover your windows. If someone knocks, don't answer. If you hear anything outside, don't investigate. And whatever you do, if you see them, don't look directly at them. The villagers exchange terrified glances. They know exactly what "them" means. The Kromolea, the 6 bearers of death. Tonight, they will walk again. 2 guards are stationed at the village perimeter, young men who drew the shortest straws, standing watch over a darkness that seems to press against them like a living thing. One of them is visibly shaking. The other tries to maintain a brave face. We have a duty, the braver one says. This village depends on us. But courage is a fragile thing when you know what's watching from the shadows. In a nearby house, we meet Millie, Zia's childhood friend, now a young woman preparing for her own wedding. Her phone rings, and Zia's voice comes through the line, hesitant and sad. Amelia is overjoyed to hear from her friend, but confused by the strange circumstances. I'm here for my mother's funeral, Zia explains, and my grandfather wants to send me away immediately. I don't understand what's happening. But that conversation is cut short, as conversations often are in Majanang when the sun goes down. Back at Prap's house, Zia and Diane are sorting through Zia's mother's belongings when something catches their attention. A small ball rolls down from the attic, stopping at their feet as if placed there by invisible hands. Children don't live here. There's no logical explanation for where it came from, and like all humans confronted with mystery, they can't resist investigating. They climb to the attic and discover a room frozen in time. Prap's secrets carefully preserved. Old photographs, documents, and a locked wooden box that seems to pulse with unspoken history. Zia is desperate to know what's inside, but before she can find a way to open it, Prap appears in the doorway, his face twisted with anger. "Why aren't you ready to leave?" he demands. "I told you to go." Diane, who's been patient and supportive throughout this strange homecoming, finally reaches his limit. "Why are you so desperate to get rid of her?" he asks her directly. "What are you so afraid of?" Prap ignores him, but Zia isn't willing to let this go. "The village thinks my father owed everyone money," she says. "That he ran away and left us with his debts. But I heard you talking to my mother on the phone a year ago. I know you are hiding something. I know there's more to the story." Prap's response is to order them both to leave. Immediately, there's no time for explanations, no time for family reunions. A car is arranged, but as fate would have it, the tire blows before they can depart. Stranded for the night, Zia is sent back into the house with strict instructions. Stay inside, stay quiet, and no matter what happens, don't let anyone know you're here. Prap takes Diane with him to find another vehicle, leaving Zia alone in a house that suddenly feels very large and very empty. Outside, the village has transformed. Doors are locked, windows shuttered. The streets are deserted, as if everyone has simply vanished. At the guard station, the two watchmen are fighting their own battle against rising panic. The scared one wants to run. The brave one insists they hold their post. They don't know that their courage or lack of it will be tested sooner than they think. Diane has been sent to a tower at the edge of the village, Prap's designated meeting point for arranging transportation. While he waits, he pulls out a journal he brought with him. Zia's journal, filled with her drawings and memories. Some of the sketches are strange, dark figures and shadowy landscapes that seem to flow from a part of her imagination she doesn't fully understand. As he turns the pages, the lights begin to flicker. Once, twice, then darkness absolute and complete. And in that darkness, Diane sees something that freezes his blood. Feet, shadowy feet appearing from nowhere and vanishing just as quickly. He's not alone. He calls out, thinking it might be a villager, but the silence that answers is worse than any response. Then the lightning flashes, and he sees them. 6 figures draped in darkness, carrying a funeral bed between them. The Kromolea. They move without sound, their eyes burning like embers in the night. Diane runs like his life depends on it, because it does, and in his head, one thought screams over and over, "Don't look back, don't look back, don't look back, don't look back." In Millie's house, the phone call with Zia is interrupted by a sudden, terrible silence. Millie's mother has stepped outside to store some things, and she sees them too, the 6 bearers, moving through the darkness with their deathly cargo. She rushes back inside, her face pale with terror. "Hide," she tells Millie. "Get in the cabinet and don't come out, no matter what you hear. They're here." The lights in the house die one by one. In the darkness, something moves. Mile watches through the crack in the cabinet door as her mother is lifted into the air by invisible hands, choked by a force she cannot see or fight. And then, with a sound that will haunt Millie forever, it's over. Her mother's body falls to the floor, lifeless, and Millie cannot even scream. The 2 guards aren't faring any better. The scared one finally breaks and runs, leaving his partner alone at the post. But running doesn't help, not against the Kromolea. The fleeing guard feels invisible hands closing around his throat, feels his body being slammed against bamboo structures until the bamboo itself snaps and falls, crushing the second guard who stayed behind. In seconds, both men are dead. The curse doesn't discriminate. It doesn't negotiate. It simply takes. Diane makes it back to Prap's house, where Zia is waiting with growing dread. He's pale, shaking, barely able to form words. "We never should have come here," he gasps. "I saw them. The bed, the 6 figures, they're real, Zia. They're real and they're coming." Zia tries to process this, but a part of her still wants to believe there's a rational explanation. Her grandfather is hiding something, surely, but ghosts? Curses? It sounds like the superstitions of a backward village clinging to old fears. Then Diane realizes something that stops her cold. Your tire didn't blow on its own. You punctured it yourself, didn't you? So you'd have an excuse to stay. Zia admits it. She wanted to understand her family's history. She wanted to know why she'd been kept away. She never imagined the cost. Before they can finish the conversation, a severed hand lands at their feet. They look up to see one of the Kromolea descending toward them, and suddenly all the denial in the world means nothing. Zia watches in horror as Diane is lifted into the air, choking, just like Mealy's mother, just like the guards, but this time, salvation comes from an unexpected source. Prapt, appearing with a gun, firing into the darkness at shapes visible only in the reflection of car windows. The creature releases Diane and vanishes. "Run," Prapt orders. "Both of you, to the tower. I'll hold them here." But Zia can't just leave her grandfather. He's the only family she has left. "What's happening?" she demands. "What are those things? What does this have to do with my father?" There's no time for explanations, but Prapt confirms what the audience already suspects. The creatures are connected to Jarut, to that terrible night in the forest, to a curse that was never truly finished. He gives them one chance: find help, find a phone, call for rescue. He'll buy them time. As Prapt faces the darkness with his specialized weapons and hard-won knowledge, Zia and Diane flee into the night, but the Kromolea are faster, smarter, and they know this village far better than two outsiders ever could. The attack comes without warning. Diane is grabbed from behind, and this time, there's no rescue. Zia watches as his leg is severed, as he falls to the ground bleeding, as he uses his last moments to tell her something he's never had the courage to say before: "I love you." Then his chest explodes, his head splits, and Zia, holding the body of her best friend and the man who loved her, breaks completely. She has no more tears, no more screams. The world has taken everything from her in a single night, and she doesn't understand why. The darkness swirls around her, and she loses consciousness. When Zia wakes, she's bound and helpless. A man stands over her, blind, scarred, and familiar to those who remember the opening scene: Rukman. He survived that night in the forest, though it cost him his eyes. He blinded himself on purpose, he explains, because the curse of the Kromolea only affects those who see them. No eyes, no curse, no death. Clever. But Rukman isn't here to help. He's here to reveal the truth that Prapt has been hiding for years. "Your grandfather isn't the hero of this story," Rukman tells her. "He's the villain. He created Yaret." The story spills out in pieces. Yaret was once a human being, a bandit, a practitioner of dark magic who worked for powerful men like Prapt. Together, they killed, stole, and covered their tracks with blood. But Jarut was different. He had abilities. He couldn't be killed by normal means: bullets, healed, wounds closed. Death was just a temporary inconvenience. Prapt discovered how to stop him: separate the head from the body, hide the pieces in different locations, and never let them reunite. But the curse Jarut spoke as he died, that was real. He would return. He would have vengeance. And he would live on through his blood. His daughter's blood, Zia's blood. "Your grandfather killed your father," Rukman says simply. But he didn't finish the job. He kept Jarut's head and body hidden, waiting for the right moment to end it permanently. And the only way to do that, the only thing that can kill a warlock like Jarut for good, is a blade coated in his own child's blood. That's why Prapt kept Zia away all these years. Not to protect her, to protect himself, to keep the one weapon that could end Jarut far from the village. But now she's here, and Rukman sees an opportunity. He doesn't want to stop Jarut. He wants to wake him. He wants the curse to spread, to consume the village that allowed such evil to flourish. He wants everyone to suffer. Before he can execute his plan, Prapt arrives. A brutal fight ensues between the old man and the blind survivor, but Prapt gains the upper hand. He beats Rukman nearly to death before Zia begs him to stop. "Don't become a killer," she pleads. "Not again." Prapt hesitates, and in that moment, Rukman grabs a gun. But he doesn't shoot Prapt, he aims at Zia. She kicks him, buying herself a moment of distraction, and Prapt fires. Rookman falls. The immediate threat is neutralized, but the greater danger remains. The Kromolea are still out there. Jarut's curse is still active, and the sun will rise in a few short hours. Prapt frees Zia and leads her through the jungle, explaining as they go. "Everything I did to protect you," he says. "I kept your father's body hidden. I created the protective amulets from his teeth. When you wear them, the curse can't touch you. I gave them to you, to Jamal, to myself. That's why we've survived this long." But Zia is beyond consolation. She's learned that her grandfather was a criminal, that her father was a monster, that her entire life has been built on lies. "You made him what he was," she accuses. "You taught him to kill. You used him, and when he became too dangerous, you murdered him." Prapt doesn't deny it. "I was a bad man," he admits. "I made terrible choices. But I've spent the rest of my life trying to make amends. I kept you safe, I kept the village alive, and now I need to finish what I started." He takes her to his house, to the backyard, to a garage where a headless body lies on a funeral bed. This is what remains of Jarut, the shell of a man who was once her father. Prapt opens the wooden box from the attic, revealing the missing piece, Jarut's head, preserved and waiting. "The only way to end this is to reunite the body," Prapt explains. "Wake him, and then kill him with your blood on the blade. You're his daughter. Only you can end him permanently." The horror of what he's asking sinks in. Zia is being asked to kill her own father, a man she barely remembers, a monster she's just learned about, but still her flesh and blood. "No," she says. "There has to be another way." Prapt's face hardens. "There isn't. He'll kill everyone in this village. He'll kill your friends. He'll kill you, unless you end this tonight with your own hands." He takes the amulet from around her neck, the protection that's been keeping the Kromolea at bay. Immediately, the lights begin to flicker. The curse is active again. The creatures are coming. Prapt runs to the backyard, Zia following despite her fear. He begins the ritual, placing the head with the body, inserting the preserved teeth, speaking words that should never be spoken. But Rookman isn't dead, only wounded. He appears from the darkness and attacks Prapt, desperate to stop the resurrection. "I want them all to die," he screams. "The village deserves to burn." The two men fight as Jarut's body begins to knit together, as the dark magic courses through dead veins, as something that should have stayed dead begins to wake, and wake he does. Jarut rises from the funeral bed, his eyes opening for the first time in decades. They're not human eyes anymore. They burn with an otherworldly fire, with decades of accumulated rage. Rookman immediately bows before him, begging forgiveness, promising loyalty. Jarut responds by ripping his throat out and drinking his blood. The first act of the resurrected warlock is to consume the man who helped bring him back. Such is the gratitude of monsters. Jarut turns his attention to Prapt. "You took everything from me," he says. "My life, my daughter, my chance at redemption. And now, you'll pay." He begins to beat Prapt with supernatural strength, each blow carrying years of accumulated hatred. But Prapt doesn't fight back. "My only regret," he gasps, "is that my daughter married you, that she loved you, that she bore a child who shares your blood." Jarut pauses. "She loved me," he insists. "We were happy, until you turned her against me, until you made me into this." The arrival of Zia interrupts the confrontation. She stands before her father, a blade hidden behind her back, her hand freshly cut so her blood coats the weapon. "I don't remember you," she says softly. "I don't know the man you were, but I know what you've become, and I know what I have to do." For a moment, Jarut wavers. He sees his wife in Zia's face, the woman he loved, the life he lost. He reaches far, not to attack, but to embrace. "My daughter," he whispers, "I missed you so much." Zia lets him hold her. She lets herself feel, just for a moment, the father she never had. Then she drives the blade into his chest. Jarut looks down at the wound, then up at his daughter's face. There's no anger in his expression, only a strange kind of peace. He smiles. He touches her face gently, and then he dies, truly dies, His body crumbling, his curse broken, his suffering ended at last. The immediate threat is over, but the cost has been immense. Zia turns to find Mealy standing in the doorway, a gun in her hands. "You did this," Mealy screams. "Your father killed my mother. You brought this curse here. You killed them all." She fires wildly, bullets striking both Zia and Prapt. Zia falls beside her grandfather, watching the life fade from his eyes. "I tried to protect you," he manages to say. "I'm sorry I couldn't give you a better life." Then he's gone. But death isn't quite done with this family yet. As Zia lies bleeding, she remembers something: her father's blood, his abilities, the power that runs in her veins. She drags herself to his corpse, takes the blood-soaked blade and drinks. The effect is immediate and terrifying. Her wounds begin to close, her strength returns, but her eyes change. They become like his, burning with an inner fire, carrying the weight of a legacy she never wanted. Morning comes to Majinang. The clouds part. The lights come back on. The village is quiet, but it's the silence of a graveyard. Zia walks the empty road leading away from the village, alone in every way that matters. She has no family left, no friends, no home to return to. But she has power, the power of her father's blood, the knowledge of his dark magic, the ability to heal from any wound. What will she do with it? That's a question for another story. In the final scene, we see a group of men arrive at Prapt's backyard. They approach Jarut's body with purpose, with familiarity. One of them speaks. "If Prapt had told us where he was hiding this, we wouldn't have had to wait so long." They take the body, whatever remains of it, and leave. These are the men Prapt once worked for, the superiors he mentioned, the ones who ordered the creation of a monster like Jarut. And they're not done with their plans yet. Some stories don't end when the credits roll. Some curses don't stop with one generation. And some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. If this story followed you into your own night, if you found yourself looking over your shoulder while walking through dark rooms, if you're wondering whether you could survive a village where the darkness carries its own funeral procession, then you understand why these tales matter. They're not just entertainment, they're warnings. And they're invitations to imagine what we would do when faced with the impossible choice between protecting ourselves and protecting the people we love. Let me know in the comments if you were in Zaya's position. Could you have done what she did? Could you kill your own father to save strangers who hate you? Or would you have let the curse spread, let the village burn, let the darkness win? There are no right answers, only the choices we make when everything we love is on the mind. If you want to explore more stories like this, stories about the monsters we create, the curses we inherit, and the terrible prices we pay for survival, then stay with this channel. There are more nightmares waiting in the dark, and some of them might just be closer than you think. Thank you for listening. Thank you for facing this story with me, and whenever you do tonight, maybe don't look too closely at the darkness outside your window. You never know what might be carrying a funeral bed through the shadows, waiting for someone to see.